Hey there, interwebs, and welcome back to How Fascinating. When most people hear the word megafauna, it conjures up mental images of animals from the Pleistocene epoch, such as woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats, and while those are megafauna, the term doesn't end with them. As long as the species reaches a certain size, it qualifies. The three most common thresholds are 40 kilos, 44 kilos, and 1 ton, or 88, 97, and 2,200 pounds for those of you cursed with the devil's numbers. The first two weights easily qualify humans as megafauna, which you wouldn't intuitively consider to be the case, but I don't make the rules. I make YouTube videos about them. That brings me, rather circuitously, to my main point. There are several videos about large animals which I wanted to make for this series, and while I usually try not to have similar topics back to back, I've decided to go the other way and do a theme this month. I call it March of the Megafauna! Pun absolutely intended, and that brings me to our first animal for the month. As I've mentioned before, I'm a native of the Philadelphia area, and one of our local cryptids is the Jersey Devil. I'd like to read to you now a direct quote from its Wikipedia page. The common description is that of a kangaroo-like or wyvern-like creature with a goat or horse-like head, leathery bat-like wings, horns, small arms with clawed hands, legs with cloven hooves, and a forked tail. I enjoy how it's initially compared to a kangaroo or a wyvern. Those are two very different creatures, but it's hard to argue that the JD doesn't fall somewhere between the two. It's a weird description, sure, but it's a weird animal. No, not the Jersey Devil, that's not an animal. I'm talking about the kangaroo. Think about it. If I said, describe a shark, you'd probably say it's a big fish with lots of teeth. If I told you to describe an eagle, you might say it's a large bird of prey. But if I asked you to describe a kangaroo, in general terms for someone who's never seen one before, what could you say? A kangaroo is just a kangaroo. If the person didn't already know it existed and you just described it to them, they'd say that's a crazy fantasy animal, and rightfully so. It's a marsupial, sure, but that doesn't mean anything to someone unfamiliar with the concept, and they've got a fairly unique body type. As a matter of fact, when a kangaroo specimen was first shipped back to Europe for display, instructions for how to pose it weren't included, and the baffled museum staff set it up like a quadruped on all fours with its rump high in the air. Actually, that reminds me, what do a kangaroo and a starfish have in common? If you said they both have 5 limbs, you're either completely insane or you know it's the correct answer. Everyone knows kangaroos get around by hopping, and they do, but that's not their primary form of locomotion. They usually put their forepaws on the ground and scoot their back feet forward, but as they do this, they're also pushing down with their tail. In fact, they exert as much pressure on the ground with their tail as with the other 4 limbs combined, essentially making the tail a 5th leg. Additionally, they basically don't move their hind legs independently. They always move them as a pair. On land, that is. Yeah, did you know they can swim? Despite moving their hind legs as a pair on land, they kick their feet independently in the water, where they also use their tail for propulsion. In this case, they swish it side to side in a sinusoidal motion like a sea snake. As a weird quirk of their physiology, they're also nearly incapable of moving backwards, either by walking or jumping. They can do it, but it's tricky and therefore reserved only for desperate situations, like when 2 males are fighting. I suppose then that you could argue that the kangaroo only has 3 legs, front, back, and tail, but the answer definitely isn't 4. Speaking of strange biology, I'll assume you're aware that female kangaroos have pouches, but that's comparatively the most normal thing about their reproductive, situation. And that's saying something. Each female kangaroo has 2 uteruses with 1 ovary each and 3 vaginas. Their male counterparts only have 1 penis each, but it is bifurcated. It's also located behind their highly mobile testicles. Kangaroos are essentially the animal equivalent of those little projects we used to make with the spare pieces that came in Lego sets. The only way they could get any weirder is if they had antlers, too. Actually, that wouldn't surprise me, since the kangaroo is to Australia what the white-tailed deer is to Pennsylvania, the official local animal and unofficial local nuisance. You'll easily spot them as roadkill on their respective home turfs, and as someone who's eaten both, I can personally confirm that they have quite similar tastes. Very gamey. Honestly, kangaroo is halfway between deer and buffalo, flavor-wise. Look, I've eaten a lot of animals, okay? I'd try Periton too if they existed. Returning now to the idea of crazy fantasy animals, the kangaroo is like the Jersey Devil, which is like a wyvern, and therefore the kangaroo must be like a wyvern then, right? Not really beyond the upright stance and the tail, though bat wings or a pouch would certainly make each other more interesting. On the other haunch, the stoner name for a kangaroo is a velociraptor or tyrannosaurus deer, and dinosaurs like the T-Rex are some of the closest things we'll ever have to a dragon, more on that later this month. It seems to me like the kangaroo is either related, tangentially, to dragons, or trying its hardest to be one. Of course, there is another creature lurking in Australia with a much stronger claim to dragonness, but that's a video for next week. Until then, thanks for watching, and have a fascinating day.